AIBC Summit. We're here in the UAE, in Dubai for the conference, and joining me I have Brian Rogers, the CEO of Neurothink. So Brian, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. We're going to be talking about Neurothink today and some of its core objectives. Before we get started, for a lot of our viewers, maybe the definition of machine learning might vary. What does machine learning mean for you?
Sure, so machine learning and AI are two terms that are conflated quite often. They're very different. So essentially, AI is just a concept of mimicking biology. Machine learning, on the other hand, is the way that you teach the machine. So with machine learning, it's all about numbers and finding common patterns in the numbers. And the numbers that are associated with patterns, what they call edges, and then through deep neural networks, just like the brain, you go from neuron to neuron and you try to find the strongest signal or the strongest average or pattern to go from layer to layer.
Fantastic. You make it sound very simple for a very complex topic. I'd love to ask how your experience was with building this and building this community around this as well.
Sure. So about a year ago, I was brought on by my parent company for this to create this whole platform out. One of the things I requested was I wanted to first build a machine learning as a sort of platform because I wanted to have something as a foundation for future projects. So one of the things I found when I was living in New York, so I'm originally from Minnesota, but lived in New York for the last 10 years. While I was in New York, I founded Machine Learning Society, which was an organization of about 1,400 data scientists. And that gave me an opportunity to really learn what data scientists liked and what they did not like about applications out there with the major cloud providers. So my team and I, we've been architecting this platform to best fit the needs or the concerns or frustrations of data scientists.
Fantastic. And you must have invested quite a lot when it comes to the development of this as well. It doesn't sound like a small project by
No.
any means. Talk us through that process.
So, there's a lot of planning that goes into this, and the architecture is quite complex because we partnered with VMware and NVIDIA. Through this partnership with both those companies, we were able to come up with a very kind of a unique architecture. One thing that's brand new to the marketplace in machine learning is this ability to containerize virtual machines that allow you to create clusters of both GPUs and CPUs. So this is kind of brand new in the space. So now we can create one instance that can have a cluster of both GPUs and CPUs. I know it sounds complex, and if you're not a data scientist, you may not understand, but this is like a really big breakthrough in the industry.
So it's a breakthrough, and you've mentioned it's really a new architecture that people
Yes.
are experiencing as well. So when it comes to the core visions of Neurothink, what would you identify as some of the core visions that you have?
So one of the things that we really wanted with this platform is to speed up the process of training models. When you go to a major cloud provider, they're first and foremost a native cloud application platform where they're attaching machine learning as a service. We are first and foremost a machine learning as a service platform, which means that you don't have to go through so many steps to set up your environment. With ours, you can literally come onto our site, set up a model within moments, and you can start training and retrain, and then deploy. So we really reduce a lot of the complexity out of creating models and deploying them.
Fantastic. And now when it comes to looking ahead, because this kind of technology is something that does evolve very, very quickly, how do you see the AI and machine learning space really growing in the next few years, and what direction do you see it moving in?
So this is really a big question for a lot of people because for a long time AI was talked about. It's been around for decades. But the big problem was that the computing resources that was available wasn't enough to train these advanced models. So as computing becomes cheaper, storage becomes cheaper, you're going to see bigger and more complex models. So I think there'll be in the future a evolution of two things: a much more advanced computing environment, and two, much more advanced deep learning neural networks. So right now, I think we're kind of in the beginning phase of deep learning neural networks, since it's really not been around that long. So
just scratching the surface, so it'll be really fascinating to see where it goes in the next few years. And I think one of the core conversations that we're having at this conference is what kind of impact this technology and the technology surrounding it will have on the world in general. And I'd love to get your impressions on where you see this impacting the world and impacting the space.
So I don't think it's going to take away jobs. I think it will actually add to or augment people's jobs. One of the big concerns that people have, although, is privacy. It's a big issue. Bias. We are still training the machine. The machine isn't able to. It's not self-aware at this point. So everything that the machine does is the result of us training it. And us human beings, we have significant bias. So this is another concern. But if we can get beyond these issues of privacy and bias, and as we start to develop out these advanced models, I think that it will contribute significantly to our society, whether it be manufacturing, healthcare. I mean, right now, identifying cancer in imaging is far greater. The machine is far greater at identifying tumors than a doctor can, right, at this point.
And when it comes to integration as well, then, do you have a kind of a target in a time frame of where you actually see this being implemented and being used? You've mentioned some of the fantastic benefits there that will have on multiple sectors in different industries.
Yes, so for us, we're going out in phases. So our first release will be really kind of to brute force, work the system to make sure that we have a solid system. And that's going to start first with universities. And then we'll go into a release 2 for the enterprises sometime around early 2022. Where I see us going with all this is being a leader in the space. I believe that we'll be able to create models. We'll have people be able to create models that will really improve where AI and ML is going.
Well, Brian, it sounds fascinating. I'd love for you to keep us up to date as this kind of integration, especially starting with the universities, comes into play. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all for myself and Brian, but we'd love to hear how you found this interview, so share your thoughts with us in the comments below.